You see the red in your portfolio. You feel that pit in your stomach every time you open your phone. And all you hear from every corner of Twitter, of YouTube, of Telegram is the same deafening chorus: buy the dip. Be greedy when others are fearful. This is the opportunity of a lifetime. They're calling it a healthy correction, a shakeout of paper hands, a necessary pause before the next parabolic leg up to all-time highs. They're telling you the playbook from 2021, from 2018 still applies. Just hold on, dollar cost average, and wait for the inevitable bull run. You're being told this is a buying opportunity, that this is just another crypto dip. They are wrong. The rules of the game have completely changed. Before you invest another dollar, you need to understand the regulatory bombshells and market traps that have been set to specifically wipe out unwary investors in 2025. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly what they are and how to see them coming. The problem: this is not a dip, it's a demolition. What we are witnessing in the final months of 2025 is not a dip. It is not a correction. It is a controlled demolition. It is a fundamental unwinding of the market we once knew. The crypto space is being systematically dismantled and rebuilt in the image of the very institutions we sought to escape. Right now, as of early November 2025, the market is reeling. After hitting a new all-time high of over $126,000 in early October, Bitcoin has seen a sharp reversal, with some charts showing brutal drops of around 10% to 16.6% from that recent peak. The talking heads on financial news blame the usual suspects: macroeconomic pressures, a cautious stance from the Fed, a general risk-off sentiment in global markets. And yes, those are factors, but they are the cover story. They are the convenient narrative that hides a much deeper, more tectonic shift happening right under our feet. For years, we operated in a digital Wild West, a space defined by its freedom, its permissionless innovation, and its sovereign ethos. That era is over. The sheriffs have arrived, but they aren't here just to keep the peace. They are here to claim the land. The game hasn't just changed, the entire board has been flipped, and the rulebook has been rewritten in secret by the players who can't lose. What they are calling a dip is, in reality, the chaotic transition period as the old, decentralized, retail driven market is systematically suffocated and replaced by a new, regulated, institutionally dominated one. The volatility you're experiencing is not just market panic, it's the turbulence from two worlds colliding. It's the sound of the old structures breaking apart. Thinking you can just buy this dip using the old rules is like trying to use a map of the 19th century American frontier to navigate modern day Manhattan. You will be crushed. The traps are more sophisticated, the predators are bigger, and the safe havens you thought you knew may now be the most dangerous places to be. In this video, we will not be talking about candlestick patterns or RSI indicators. We are going to dissect the two forces driving this great unwinding. First, the regulatory bombshells that are being dropped to intentionally cripple the crypto native world. And second, the institutional market traps designed to scoop up your assets for pennies on the dollar during the ensuing chaos. What I am about to share with you is the new map. It's the survivor's guide to the unwinding of 2025. Pay close attention, because your financial future in this space depends on it. The first and most powerful force driving this unwinding is the final coordinated arrival of global regulation. For years, we joked about it, we debated it, we theorized about when and how the governments of the world would finally make their move. Well, in 2025, they stopped debating and started acting. This isn't a scattered country by country effort anymore. This is a synchronized global pincer movement designed to do one thing: regain control. The official narrative, spun by reports from bodies like the President's Working Group, is about strengthening American leadership, protecting consumers, and fostering innovation. But you must learn to read between the lines. When they say consumer protection, they mean total surveillance. When they say market stability, they mean centralized control. And when they say innovation, they mean innovation that we own and operate. This regulatory wave is a multi-front war. It's not one law. It's a barrage of policies aimed at every critical choke point of the crypto ecosystem. This is happening on three main fronts. Subsection A, the war on exchanges and self-custody. The first front is the most obvious: the exchanges. Platforms like Coinbase, Binance, and others were our primary gateways to this world. They were the bridges connecting the old financial system to the new. And now, those bridges are being turned into heavily fortified border checkpoints. Throughout 2025, regulators across the globe, from the EU with its markets in crypto assets (MICA) framework to the US with its newly implemented laws have massively increased the scrutiny on these platforms. The official term is compliance costs, but that's a sanitized phrase for what is truly happening. It means these exchanges are being forced to adopt the same invasive surveillance architecture as the legacy banking system. The travel rule, now being enforced by the Financial Action Task Force, FATF, in dozens of jurisdictions, requires these virtual asset service providers to collect and share your personal identity data for transfers. Think about what that means. The very idea of pseudonymous transactions, a core tenet of crypto's early promise, is being chipped away at on the on-ramps and off-ramps. Every transaction is tracked, logged, and shared between a web of compliant institutions. This has a chilling effect. It makes exchanges hesitant to list new, innovative, or privacy-focused assets. It forces them to implement stricter and stricter know your customer, KYC, and anti-money laundering, AML, procedures. We're already seeing reports of accounts being frozen, withdrawals being delayed or questioned, and users being forced to provide invasive levels of documentation to prove the source of their own funds. But here is the real hidden danger. This isn't just about stopping illicit activity. That's the excuse. The practical effect is that it makes self-custody feel inconvenient, while keeping funds on an exchange feels easy. They are building a digital panopticon, and by making the alternative, holding your own keys, seem risky and complicated, they are psychologically herding you into their walled gardens. They want to sever the connection between you and your assets. Because if you don't hold the keys, you are simply asking a regulated corporation for permission to access their assets. And as we're about to see, that permission can be revoked at any time. Subsection B, the stablecoin strangulation and the rise of the digital leash. The second front in this war is the assault on stablecoins. Assets like USDT and USDC have become the lifeblood of the crypto economy. They are the multi-billion-dollar pool of liquidity that allows for fast, efficient trading and settlement outside the slow, cumbersome traditional banking rails. And that is precisely why they are being targeted. The establishment sees private stablecoins not as an innovation, but as a direct threat to their monopoly on money creation and control. A globally accessible dollar-denominated digital asset that they don't issue and can't fully control is their worst nightmare. In 2025, this came to a head. The Guiding and Establishing National Innovation for U.S. Stablecoins Act, or GENIUS Act, was signed into law, creating a federal framework for stablecoins. On the surface, it sounds positive. It requires one-to-one backing with high-quality liquid assets and monthly public disclosures, which seems like a good thing for security. But the true purpose of this bill is not to legitimize existing stablecoins. It's to create a regulatory moat so high that only the most well-connected bank-like institutions can possibly comply. It's designed to kill the existing ecosystem and replace it with a government-sanctioned version. And this leads us to the ultimate Trojan horse, the central bank digital currency, or CBDC. While some U.S. officials and proposed bills like the Anti-CBDC Surveillance State Act have cited privacy concerns, the research and development of central bank digital currencies is accelerating globally. Around 93% of central banks are exploring them, with many like the European Central Bank in pilot or development stages. They demonize private stablecoins to create a problem, and then at the moment of maximum crisis, they will present the CBDC as the safe, regulated solution. A CBDC is not just a digital dollar. It is potentially the most powerful tool of social control ever conceived. It is programmable money. This is not a conspiracy theory. It is a stated feature of the technology. Programmable money is a digital leash. It means your money can be programmed by its issuer, the central bank. Imagine a world where your digital dollars can be given an expiration date to force you to spend and stimulate the economy. Imagine trying to buy more than your allotted amount of gasoline, or a steak when the government is pushing insect protein, only to have your transaction declined. Imagine your funds being frozen instantly, without recourse, because you attended a protest or donated to a cause the government dislikes. This isn't a slippery slope fallacy. This is the end game. This is what they are building while they distract you with market crashes and talk of consumer protection. By strangling the private free market stablecoins we use today, they are clearing the path for their own centralized programmable tool of control. If the regulatory bombshells are the artillery barrage designed to soften the target, then the institutional takeover is the ground invasion. And this is the part of the story that is so incredibly deceptive because it arrived disguised as our greatest victory. For years, what did we all want? Institutional adoption. We craved the validation and the capital that Wall Street could bring. We celebrated every time a legacy finance giant announced a crypto initiative. In 2025, that dream became a reality. BlackRock, Fidelity, and the other titans of finance are not just in crypto. They are becoming the dominant force. And what we are learning far too late is that they are not here to join our revolution. They are here to co-opt it, sanitize it, and sell it back to the masses in a package they control. This is the great market trap of 2025. You are being led to believe that institutional involvement is a rising tide that will lift all boats. The reality is that they have built a sophisticated series of dams and locks designed to channel the vast majority of that capital flow directly into their own pockets, while leaving the retail investor stranded in a drying up riverbed. Subsection A, the ETF illusion. The most powerful instrument in this takeover is the Exchange Traded Fund, or ETF. The launch of spot Bitcoin and Ethereum ETFs was heralded as our "we've made it" moment. Billions of dollars poured in, and for a while, prices soared. It felt like the ultimate validation, but it was an illusion, a brilliant trillion-dollar sleight of hand. When a pension fund or a retail boomer buys shares in a BlackRock Bitcoin ETF, they are not buying Bitcoin. They are buying a financial derivative, a paper claim on Bitcoin that is custodied and controlled entirely by BlackRock. They get price exposure, but they give up every single revolutionary property of the asset itself. They have no self-custody. They cannot transact peer-to-peer. They cannot participate in the network. They are utterly dependent on the issuer. This creates a dangerous bifurcation in the market. There is the real asset, Bitcoin, held by a shrinking pool of sovereign individuals. And then there is paper Bitcoin, an ever-expanding ocean of IOUs controlled by a handful of Wall Street giants. Here's the trap. These institutions, which now have staggering crypto portfolios, are the single largest buyers of the underlying asset. They need to accumulate massive amounts of real Bitcoin and Ethereum to back their ETF shares. And how do you think they acquire that Bitcoin at the best possible price? They use market volatility. They capitalize on the fear and panic created by regulatory crackdowns. They can let the market dip, watch retail investors get liquidated, or panic sell their real self-custodied coins, and then they are perfectly positioned to step in and accumulate. This dip you are being told to buy is in many ways an accumulation opportunity for the very institutions that are selling you the ETFs. They can benefit from the fire, then buy the ashes at a discount. You are selling them the real thing, the sovereign asset, and in return, you might be tempted to buy back their paper promise. It is the single greatest trade in their history, and one of the worst for the retail investor who falls for it. Subsection B, the great bifurcation and the rise of approved crypto. The institutional takeover doesn't stop with Bitcoin and Ethereum. It extends to the entire altcoin market, creating a dangerous new two-tiered system. I call it the Great Bifurcation. On one side, you will have institutional grade, or Wall Street approved cryptocurrencies. These are the projects that will thrive in the new regulated environment. What do they look like? They are compliant by design. They have public-facing teams, corporate structures, and large legal budgets. They actively work with regulators to ensure they fit within the new rules. They serve institutional needs. These are often infrastructure projects that focus on things Wall Street cares about, like the tokenization of real-world assets, RWAs. Think of projects that provide the Oracle infrastructure to connect blockchain to real-world data, or others focused on providing the pipes for institutional DeFi. These projects are not seen as a threat, they are seen as a tool. The CEO of BlackRock himself has said the future is the tokenization of all assets. They need protocols to make that happen. They have powerful partners. They are announcing partnerships with major banks, asset managers, and payment processors. They are being integrated into major institutional platforms. On the other side of this bifurcation is everything else, the unapproved cryptocurrencies. This category includes many of the projects that we loved for their cypherpunk ethos: privacy coins, truly decentralized DEOs, experimental DeFi protocols, and anything that prioritizes sovereignty over compliance. In this new market, these unapproved assets will be systematically starved of oxygen. Exchanges will be terrified to list them due to regulatory pressure. Liquidity will dry up as institutions refuse to touch them. They will be labeled as high risk, non-compliant, or worse. The narrative will be that these are the bad cryptos, the ones used by criminals, and that you should stay away for your own protection. This is the trap. The institutional players and their regulatory partners are creating a safe zone of approved projects. They will use their immense marketing power and control over the financial media to funnel the next wave of investors exclusively into this walled garden. The capital that used to flow freely across the entire crypto ecosystem will now be channeled into a select few projects that Wall Street has blessed and likely already has a large position in. The rest will be left to wither, their communities demoralized and their token prices bleeding out. Subsection C, the weaponization of volatility. The final piece of the institutional trap is the most brutal. The weaponization of market volatility through sophisticated trading. The kind of market games retail investors saw in the past, simple pump and dumps, are child's play compared to what is happening now. With the entry of hedge funds and high-frequency trading firms, the crypto market is now a playground for algorithmic warfare. These firms can deploy strategies that are impossible for a human retail trader to counter: spoofing and layering. They place massive buy or sell orders with no intention of filling them, creating a false impression of supply or demand to bait other traders into making a move. Once the market reacts, they pull their orders and trade in the opposite direction, profiting from the move they manufactured. Wash trading at scale. Algorithms can trade between their own accounts millions of times per second, artificially inflating the volume on an asset to make it appear to have huge momentum, luring in FOMO buyers before dumping on them. Stop loss. Hunting. By analyzing on-chain data and order books, these firms can see exactly where large pockets of retail stop-loss orders are clustered. They can then execute a bear raid, deliberately pushing the price down just enough to trigger a cascade of these stop losses, causing a flash crash where they can then buy up assets at a deep discount. Derivatives and liquidations. The crypto derivatives market is now immense. Following a historic $6 billion liquidation event on October 10th, the market has seen sharp deleveraging. Institutions can use this environment to build huge short positions, then influence spot market prices to drive prices down, profiting from their shorts while triggering cascades of liquidations from over-leveraged retail traders. This can create a death spiral that feeds on itself, and the institutions are the only ones who profit from the chaos they helped amplify. This is what you need to understand. The sharp, terrifying drops we are seeing in late 2025 are not entirely natural market movements. They are often amplified and exacerbated by these algorithmic strategies. They are strategic operations designed to shake you out, to force you to sell your assets at a loss, and to transfer your wealth into their hands. They use the regulatory news as air cover, creating the perfect storm of fear, and then they deploy their algorithmic weapons to exploit that fear for maximum profit. This is the grim reality of the Great Crypto Unwinding. It is a 1-2 punch of regulatory suffocation and institutional predation. They are changing the rules and rigging the game simultaneously. But acknowledging this reality is the first step towards surviving it. Now we need to talk about how to fight back. We need a new playbook. Subsection A, redefining your blue chips. The survivor's framework. Your first and most critical task is to completely overhaul how you evaluate a crypto asset. The metrics that used to signal a blue chip investment, a high market cap, a slick marketing campaign, a big following on Twitter, are no longer reliable indicators of long-term success. In fact, they can often be signals of a trap. In the post-unwinding world, a true blue chip is a survivor. It's a project that can withstand the combined pressures of regulatory scrutiny and institutional manipulation. To find these projects, you need to apply a new 3-part litmus test. 1. Regulatory resilience. This is the new starting point for all analysis. Before you even look at the tech, you must ask, how is this project positioned to survive the regulatory onslaught? Transparency over anonymity. Forget anonymous founders and mysterious teams. In this new era, regulators are targeting anonymity. Look for projects with public doxed teams who are not afraid to engage with the public and with policymakers. Look for registered legal entities and clear corporate structures. This is no longer a sign of selling out, it's a sign of a professional operation built to last. A defensible use case? The project needs to do something that is demonstrably useful and difficult to classify as purely a speculative security. Is it providing decentralized storage? Is it a source of verifiable computation? Is it an Oracle network securing billions in value? Projects with clear, tangible utility that goes beyond number go up are far more defensible against regulatory attack than a simple meme coin or a project whose only function is staking for yield. Proactive compliance. Does the project leadership talk about regulation? Do they publish legal opinions or frameworks? Do they geofence their services away from prohibitive jurisdictions? A project that buries its head in the sand and hopes the regulators will just go away is a project that is going to get steamrolled. A project that proactively navigates the complex legal landscape is one that is planning to be here in 10 years. Criterion 2, the institution-proof litmus test. This is the counterbalance to the first criterion. While a project needs to be resilient to regulation, it must not be entirely captured by the institutional agenda. You must ask, is this project truly decentralized, or is it merely a decentralized in name only DINO corporation that can be easily co-opted? Governance and node distribution. Look beyond the marketing. Who actually controls the protocol? How are the validator or mining nodes distributed? If a handful of corporate entities run the vast majority of the nodes, the project is not decentralized. It is a distributed database that can be coerced or shut down. Look for a geographically and entity diverse set of network participants. Infrastructure independence. Is the project's core infrastructure running on centralized services like Amazon Web Services, AWS? Many are. A project that is truly resilient should not have a single corporate point of failure. Unalterable core principles. Does the protocol have a core function that is resistant to censorship or alteration? Bitcoin's fixed supply of 21 million is a prime example. This monetary policy is embedded in the code and is practically impossible to change, regardless of what any corporation or government wants. Look for projects that have similarly enshrined principles that cannot be negotiated away in a corporate boardroom. Criterion 3, the real-world utility factor. This is where you find fundamental, defensible value that transcends crypto market cycles. Beyond speculation, what does this asset do in the real world? The RWA revolution, the tokenization of real-world assets, is arguably the single biggest narrative for the next decade. Projects that provide the core infrastructure for this are incredibly well positioned. This includes Oracle networks that securely bring real-world data on-chain, and platforms focused on tokenizing financial instruments like bonds and private credit. These aren't just crypto projects. They are the future rails of the entire financial system. Solving a billion-dollar problem, look for projects that are using decentralization to solve a tangible problem for which a centralized solution is inefficient or untrustworthy. This could be in supply chain management, digital identity, or decentralized science, DeFi. The value is not in the token price, it's in the problem being solved. A project that scores highly on all three of these criteria, regulatory resilience, institution-proof decentralization, and real-world utility, is a potential survivor of the Great Unwinding. It is a candidate for the new blue chip portfolio. Subsection B, the modern portfolio, the barbell strategy 2.0. Once you have this new evaluation framework, you must restructure your portfolio to reflect the new market reality. The diversify across 50 altcoins approach is a recipe for disaster. It exposes you to the vast middle ground of projects that are destined to be squeezed into oblivion by the great bifurcation. Instead, I advocate for what I call the barbell strategy 2.0. Picture a barbell. On one end, you have your extremely safe conservative assets. On the other, your extremely speculative, high-risk, high-reward bets. What you avoid is the mushy, undefined risk in the middle. One side of the barbell, the sovereign foundation, 70 to 80% of your portfolio. This is your core, your non-negotiable wealth. This side of the barbell consists of one, maybe two, of the most proven, decentralized, and institution-proof assets in existence. For virtually everyone, this means Bitcoin. This is not your trading stack. This is your savings technology. This is the asset you hold for the long term for its properties as a sovereign, censorship-resistant, absolutely scarce store of value. And critically, this portion of your portfolio must be held in self-custody on a hardware wallet. Not your keys, not your coins. This has never been more important than it is now. This is your personal central bank, your exit from the collapsing legacy system and the traps of the ETF illusion. This is the anchor of your entire financial life in the new world. The other side of the barbell, the survivor's speculative basket, 20 to 30% of your portfolio. This is your high growth engine. This is where you take calculated risks. But speculative does not mean random. This is not a YOLO into the latest meme coin. This basket should be comprised of a small, concentrated number of projects, perhaps 3 to 5, that you have rigorously vetted using the survivors framework we just discussed. These are your bets on the survivor altcoins, the projects you believe have the regulatory resilience, decentralization, and real world utility to become the next generation of leaders. This is where you might place a bet on a key RWA infrastructure player or a truly innovative layer one that passes the decentralization test. By concentrating your bets on a few projects you have researched deeply, you increase your potential upside while managing your risk because you understand your investment thesis inside and out. What's not in the portfolio? Notice what's missing. The middle of the barbell is empty. You are deliberately avoiding the dozens of mid-cap altcoins that don't have a clear role. The projects that are not decentralized enough to be sovereign, but not compliant enough to be chosen by institutions. This is the squeeze zone, the killing field for retail capital in the Great Unwinding. Liquidate these positions. Reallocate that capital to the two ends of your barbell. This framework is just the beginning. It's a map, but you still have to navigate the territory. If you want to see my personal checklist, the exact questions I ask when applying the Survivors framework to a potential investment, make sure you are subscribed to the channel and have the notification bell turned on. I'll be releasing that as a downloadable resource in my very next video, and you will not want to miss it. Also, I want to hear from you. Based on this new framework, which project do you think is most likely to survive and thrive in the post-unwinding world? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single one, and the community's collective intelligence is our greatest weapon. Subsection C, navigating the traps. Practical steps for sovereignty. Finally, let's talk about the practical, everyday habits you need to adopt to stay safe and sovereign. Master self-custody, period. I cannot stress this enough. If you have a significant amount of crypto on an exchange right now, you are making a grave mistake. Consider it an unallocated risk. Your number one priority should be to acquire a reputable hardware wallet or two for a multi-sig setup and move your sovereign assets off the exchange. Learn how to do it. Practice with small amounts. Secure your seed phrase as if your life depends on it. In this new era, the convenience of an exchange is not worth the risk of confiscation, withdrawal freezes, or being severed from your own money. Curate your information diet. You are being psychologically manipulated. The chorus of buy the dip and the endless hype on social media is noise designed to lead you into traps. You must curate your information diet ruthlessly. Unfollow the hype merchants. Instead, follow developers, researchers, and sober analysts who focus on data, code, and first principles. Read project documentation. Listen to long-form interviews with founders. Your goal is to find signal in a world of overwhelming noise. Think like a macro investor. Crypto no longer exists in a separate universe. It is now deeply intertwined with the global macroeconomic landscape. The institutions that are now playing in this field are making their decisions based on what the Federal Reserve is doing, what inflation and employment numbers look like, and where global capital flows are headed. You don't need to become a macroeconomist, but you do need to pay attention. Understand how interest rate changes affect risk assets. Understand the relationship between the dollar index and crypto prices. This is the context within which the institutional game is being played. Have an exit strategy. The HODL forever mantra is a beautiful sentiment, but it's an incomplete strategy, especially for the speculative side of your barbell. For every single investment you make in that speculative basket, you must define your thesis and your exit criteria before you invest. At what price will you take profits? What developments would invalidate your thesis and trigger a sell, even at a loss? Writing this down removes emotion from the equation. It prevents you from becoming a bag holder, clinging to a failed project out of hope. In this market, discipline is your shield. The Great Crypto Unwinding of 2025 is not the end of crypto. It is the end of crypto's childhood. It is a violent, chaotic, and often painful transition from a purely speculative playground into a mature, globally significant asset class. But in this transition, the rules have been rewritten by powerful forces that do not have your best interests at heart. They have laid regulatory minefields designed to cripple the decentralized world. They have constructed sophisticated institutional traps, the ETF illusion, the great bifurcation, the weaponization of volatility, all designed to separate you from your assets and your wealth. They are banking on you to be scared, to be confused, and to follow the old playbook right off a cliff. But now you see the map, you see the traps, you understand the new rules of the game. This knowledge transforms you from a potential victim into a conscious participant. You now know to distinguish regulatory resilience from institutional capture. You know how to build a portfolio, the barbell strategy 2.0, that is both anchored in sovereignty and positioned for asymmetric upside. You know the practical steps needed to secure your assets and your mind from manipulation. The wild, unregulated frontier is closing, but the revolution is not over. The opportunity to build and preserve sovereign wealth is still immense, perhaps more so than ever before, but that opportunity no longer belongs to the blindly optimistic or the get-rich-quick masses. It belongs to the informed, the prepared, the disciplined. It belongs to the sovereign individual who understands the landscape and chooses their path with intention. Don't just survive the unwinding. Position yourself to thrive in the new world that comes after. I'll see you there.